Good morning. I'm Irene Rekiki from SysBio Group at Politecnico di Torino, and I will present our contribution to the TELMED workshop entitled Sleep Quality Through Vocal Analysis, a Telemedicine Application. Here is the outline of today's presentation. First, I will go through the introduction, then I will present the materials and methods sections and illustrate the results and discussion. Finally, I will present the conclusions. So, a brief introduction on telemedicine today. Telemedicine is an important tool as it allows continuous monitoring, thus improving patients' outreach, and provides objective measures leading to higher medical efficiency. Moreover, it employs easily operated technologies and makes personalized outcomes possible. Another important topic are neurodegenerative diseases that affect up to 6 million individuals in the US alone, causing more than 250,000 deaths, and had only in 2020 an annual cost of 655 billion US dollars in the US. Now let's switch to one of the main topics of this paper, which is sleep. Sleep is a transitory state of altered consciousness which serves a restorative function to the human organism. Its quality is pivotal to our health. In fact, fragmented sleep leads to impaired amyloid beta deposition, resulting in an increased risk for neurodegeneration. This makes sleep an early marker of neurodegeneration, also considering the fact that sleep disturbances may occur up to 15 years before the diagnosis of ND. Moreover, recent works highlighted the influence of sleep on speech quality. In fact, poor sleepers present with an altered vocal signal. Therefore, let's switch to voice. As regards voice, we can say that it is a reservoir of significant clinical information. Moreover, data collection is simple as it does not require cumbersome instrumentation. And finally, it is an important tool for remote monitoring, providing not only an objective point of view of the subject's health status, but also ensuring social distancing. The aim of this study is presented in this slide. Sleep quality is usually assessed through polysomnography, which, though being the gold standard today, is often regarded as invasive due to the high number of electrodes involved in the examination. This study thus has three main objectives. First of all, to assess the feasibility of a remote evaluation tool, then perform an automatic classification of good and poor sleepers through machine learning. And lastly, it aims at investigating the influence of the sleep-wake schedule and life habits through a novel questionnaire presented to the users. I will now illustrate the materials involved in the study. The data employed in this study were collected through a specifically designed web application available both on desktop and mobile browsers, which require the users to first read a phonemically balanced text in the Italian language, and then to fill in two sleep questionnaires. First, the PSQI, which is the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index questionnaire in its shortened version to assess sleep quality, and then to complete another survey called SLEEPS that we presented in this study that investigated the subject's sleep-wake schedule along with its life habits. 135 anonymous volunteers participated in the study, out of which 70 completed both tasks. The mean age was similar in the male and female subgroups and was around 36 years to 41 years old, as well as the mean PSQI score, which was on average 6 for the male subgroups and 6.38 for the female subgroups. I will now illustrate the methods applied to the study. This chart illustrates the outline of the analysis process. We evaluated separately the contribution of voice and sleep, and then merged the extracted features through the feature fusion. So first of all, as regards voice, we performed preprocessing and then feature extraction. As regards sleep, we proceeded on two parallel paths. Through the PSQI score, we assessed the label, which is the score of being a good or poor sleeper. And through the sleep survey, we performed feature extraction. Then we merge the extracted features from voice and sleep in the feature fusion process, and then we proceeded to the feature selection and the classification steps. As regards the pre-processing of the vocal samples, we first manually removed the initial and final silence regions through the silence removal process. Then we performed denoising by applying a denoising filter with Pratt software hyperparameters on the signal. The signal amplitude was then normalized in the range 0 to 1 to prevent the microphone speaker distance from affecting the subsequent analysis. After that, we identified the voiced and unvoiced regions through the use of Pratt software. And lastly, the concatenated voice regions were framed employing 25 milliseconds windows with 10 milliseconds overlap. I will now illustrate more in detail the feature extraction process for the vocal samples. So it was developed on two parallel stages. After denoising, we extracted the high-level features. As regards the second stage, we performed the previously described framing and extracted the low-level features and their statistics. Eventually, the vocal feature set is constructed by merging the statistics from the low-level features and the extracted high-level features. The extracted vocal features are further divided into different categories. The high-level features account for the timing measures, that is, the rhythmic organization of speech. The low-level features, on the other hand, can be divided in different categories. Noise measures that measure the extent of noise in speech, periodicity that describe the degree of periodicity of the vocal signal, spectral measures that describe the frequency distribution over the spectrum, intensity and septural measures, which describe, respectively, the amplitude evaluation of the vocal signal and the subtle changes in the motion of articulators during speech production for the latter. Regarding feature extraction on sleep data, we base the analysis on the data collected through the sleeps survey, which included 21 self-reported questions scored on a 5-point Likert scale. The sleep questionnaire consisted of 4 different axes, gathering information about general data that included demographic information, sex, age, education level, and information about the COVID-19 diagnosis. Then work and study habits, such as daily screen time and time spent remote working or learning. Then leisure time habits, that is the amount of time spent outdoors or the weekly amount of physical activity. And lastly, sleep habits that describe the frequency of nocturnal awakenings, morning fatigue or drowsiness, and the perceived sleep quality. As for dataset labeling, that is assigning a certain subject to the good or poor sleeper class, we employed the obtained SPQSI score. This questionnaire yielded a continuous score, which in our data ranged between 0 and 10. The data distribution of the score can be seen in this chart. And according to this distribution, we set the cutoff threshold to 5, thus identifying 26 good sleepers and 44 poor sleepers. The feature selection process consisted in 3 different steps. First of all, we performed the early fusion of feature extracted from vocal signals and the sleep surveys, respectively. Then we evaluated the feature target correlation, that is the class, by means of the Pearson correlation coefficient, and kept only those features whose coefficient was higher than 0.4 and p-value was under 0.002. Lastly, we evaluated the intra-feature correlation, and in the presence of features that showed intracorrelation higher than their correlation with the output class, that is the intercorrelation, we kept the one feature showing higher correlation with the output class. Finally, we implemented the classification task. First of all, it is important to note that we performed a gender-specific analysis, working separately on the male and female subgroups. As regards the analysis, we split each dataset into train and test with an 80-20 proportion. And moreover, tenfold cross-validation was employed during the training phase to test the generalization capability of the model. As regards classification, we employed and tested 7 different models, among which 4 ensemble methods that are AdaBoost, Bagtrees, random forest, and gradient boostings, and other 3 classifiers that are the support vector machine, the k-nearest neighbors, and the naive Bayes classifier. Lastly, we compared the model performance through the F1 score, and the best models were optimized through a grid search approach that therefore optimized the hyperparameters of the model. I will now go through the results, presenting our findings and have a brief discussion on them. First of all, before feature selection, we performed a high-level analysis investigating the correlation between features and targets. So we evaluated the feature relevance. For each subgroup, that is male and female, the 3 most correlated features were employed to plot the class distribution that is shown in these scatter plots, and they all showed good class discrimination. And I just want to stress that most correlated features reached a correlation coefficient up to 0.7. Then we performed a population inspection comparing the PSQI scores to the self-evaluated sleep quality parameter, which is the sleep-Q score. As regards this score, the users were asked to rate their sleep on a 5-point scale from very poor to excellent, going through below average, average, and above average. And then we compare these two, the PSQI score to the sleep-Q score. These 2 scores concur in the male subgroup, as appreciable from the plot on the left, whereas as regards the female subgroup, we have to say that 67% of the female subgroup improperly rated their sleep with an overrating trend. Afterwards, we also evaluated the external cofactors collected through the sleep survey. Unexpectedly, very poor correlation was found between sleep quality and remote working or learning, as appreciable from this plot that ranks these elements according to the correlation with the sleep-Q score. However, high correlation was found with the frequency of nocturnal awakenings. Then we performed feature selection as previously described, and here are the selected features for the male and female subgroups respectively. As for the male population, the MFCC, which is the male frequency cepstral coefficient, the PLP, which are the perceptual linear prediction coefficients, and the performance were selected as best features. Instead, as regards the female subgroup, the MFCC, PLP, and the spectral features resulted with highest relevance. Coming to the classification performance, these charts show the performance of the tested classifiers in the 2 subgroups. So I just want to briefly recall that we tested 7 different models and we evaluated the performance through different metrics that are the accuracy, the area under the curve, the F1 score, the precision, the sensitivity, and the specificity. The 3 best models resulted to be the Bagtrees, the k-nearest neighbor, and the support vector machine classifiers, and were therefore optimized through hyperparameters optimization. The optimized performances are shown in this slide, and as appreciable, no significant performance deterioration can be seen when switching from the validation to the test set. And we can also observe a low specificity on the female subgroup, which, however, may be due to the different cardinality between classes in the female subgroup. To sum up, we can say that the recorded vocal samples proved efficient in sleep quality screening, yielding an 88% and 85% F1 score for the females and males subgroups, respectively. Well, this proves the feasibility of a remote monitoring system based on consumer-grade devices, because it's been proven that data collected remotely are effective for subject monitoring. And moreover, we also highlighted the possibility to use covariables extracted from sleep surveys in order to improve the classifier performance. I will now illustrate the limits of this work and our future directions. So first of all, this study comes with some limitation. First, the PSQI score, especially in its shortened version, relies on self-reported items and lacks objectivity. Moreover, our sample size was limited to 70 subjects. And we plan, of course, on increasing it by enrolling more volunteers and more subjects. Future work will also address the integration with inertial data and perform a stratified analysis based on demographical data or comorbidity. Lastly, we plan on transforming this one-point evaluation into a longitudinal evaluation, especially including subjects suffering from sleep disturbances. And this is all for today. Questions are very welcome. You may find our contact information in this slide. And I thank you for your kind attention. Goodbye.